It was a chilly Friday night, and Ethan Walker sat alone in his dimly lit apartment. The soft hum of his computer filled the silence, accompanied by the occasional creak of the old wooden floorboards beneath his desk. Curiosity had gotten the better of him. For weeks, he'd heard whispers online about the dark web, a hidden layer of the internet where anything, legal or otherwise, could be found. Tonight, he decided to see it for himself. Ethan wasn't a hacker or some tech wizard. He was just a bored 26-year-old graphic designer looking for a thrill. After downloading the necessary software and meticulously following a YouTube guide, he found himself staring at the eerie homepage of a hidden marketplace. The screen glowed faintly, showing lists of anonymous vendors selling everything from fake IDs to unsettling services. He told himself he'd only look just to satisfy his curiosity, scrolling through the listings. Ethan's unease grew. The items were bizarre but harmless. Rare books, vintage electronics, strange art pieces. But other sections were much darker. A category labeled Red Rooms caught his eye. He'd heard of these in online forums, supposed live streams of horrifying acts. Most people dismissed them as urban legends, but here it was, right in front of him. He hesitated, his finger hovering over the mouse. "This is stupid," he muttered to himself, shaking his head. But just as he was about to close the browser, a new chat window popped up. The username was Watcher42. "Curiosity is dangerous, Ethan," the message read. His stomach dropped. How did they know his name? Panic surged through him. He quickly checked his webcam and covered it with a piece of tape, his hands trembling. "Who are you?" he typed, heart racing. The reply was almost immediate. "A friend. You should leave now." He stared at the screen, his mind racing. Was this some kind of prank? Did someone he knows set this up? Before he could type another response, a second message appeared, "You're being watched." Ethan bolted upright, his chair screeching against the floor. He spun around, scanning his small apartment. The curtains were drawn, the doors locked. It was impossible for anyone to see him, wasn't it? The chat window dinged again. "Don't bother looking. We see you." A cold sweat broke out across his forehead. He slammed the laptop shut, his pulse pounding in his ears. The room felt suffocating, every shadow suddenly alive with menace. He grabbed his phone, intending to call the police, but hesitated. What would he tell them? That someone on the dark web sent him creepy messages? He'd sound paranoid, or worse, like he had something to hide. Moments later, his phone buzzed. An unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered. "Hello?" he whispered. A distorted voice crackled through the line. "We told you to leave." The call ended abruptly. Ethan's knees buckled, and he sank to the floor. This wasn't a joke. Someone had his number. His name. Maybe even his address. Panic spiraled into dread as he realized how deep he might have ventured into something he didn't understand. The laptop, still shut, began to vibrate faintly. A high-pitched sound emanated from it, growing louder and more grating by the second. Ethan approached it cautiously, his gut screaming at him to throw it out the window. But he had to know what was happening. He flipped the lid open. The screen was black except for a single line of text, "Run." And then, the lights in his apartment went out. Ethan froze, his breath shallow. The hum of the city outside seemed miles away as the darkness swallowed the room. He fumbled in his pocket for his phone, using the dim screen to light his way to the kitchen. He needed a weapon, something, anything to protect himself. His trembling hands closed around a chef's knife. He felt ridiculous but reassured himself it was better than nothing. As he turned back toward the living room, he noticed the faint glow of his laptop screen through the darkness. The black screen had changed. Now it displayed a live feed of his apartment. The angle was from above, as if from a corner of the ceiling. Ethan's blood ran cold. He hadn't installed any cameras. His eyes darted to the ceiling, searching for the source, but all he saw were shadows. The chat window reopened on the screen. Another message appeared, "Too slow, Ethan." A loud knock shattered the silence. It wasn't from the door to his apartment, it came from the window. The 7th floor window. Heart hammering, Ethan backed away, gripping the knife tightly. He forced himself to look, but the glass revealed only his pale reflection in the darkness. The knock came again, louder this time. Ethan's phone buzzed in his pocket. The screen showed another unknown number. Without thinking, he answered. Before he could speak, the distorted voice returned. "We're closer than you think." The call ended. Ethan's grip on the knife faltered, and it clattered to the floor. The knock on the window became frantic, almost desperate. He grabbed his phone and dialed 911, his voice shaking as he explained his situation. "Sir, stay on the line." "Officers are on their way," the operator assured him. But as the minutes dragged on, the knocking stopped. The room fell eerily silent. Ethan's heart didn't slow. If anything, the quiet was worse. He crouched in the corner, his back against the wall, waiting for any sign of help. Finally, red and blue lights flashed outside his window. He heard the muffled sounds of voices in the hallway. Relieved, Ethan unlocked the door and flung it open, expecting to see the police. Instead, the hallway was empty. His neighbors' doors remained shut. The elevator at the far end of the corridor dinged, and a figure stepped out. They wore a black hoodie, their face obscured by a mask. In their hand was a laptop, its screen glowing faintly. Ethan's phone buzzed once more. The text read, "Game over." And the figure started walking toward him. Ethan's knees buckled as he stood frozen in the doorway. The figure's steps were deliberate, the faint glow of their laptop casting eerie shadows in the dim hallway. Ethan's mind raced. He had to act fast. He slammed the door shut, bolting the locks, and scrambled backward into the apartment. His breath came in short, panicked gasps. Gripping the chef's knife once again, he scanned the room for a way out. The window was a death trap on the 7th floor, and the door was now a barrier between him and whatever was out there. A loud thud reverberated through the door, followed by another. The figure wasn't knocking anymore, they were trying to break in. Ethan grabbed his phone, frantically dialing 911 again. The line connected, but no voice greeted him. Just static. Then, faintly, the distorted voice from before, "Running won't help." Ethan dropped the phone, his chest heaving. The laptop on his table sprang to life, the screen filling with garbled text and a series of distorted images. Among them, he recognized his own terrified face, taken seconds ago from an angle that shouldn't exist. The door rattled violently, the wood splintering under the force. Desperate, Ethan ran into his bedroom and shoved a dresser against the door. He grabbed his phone again, trying to text anyone for help, but every message failed to send. The distorted voice played on a loop in his head. Too slow. Too late. The sound of splintering would echoed from the living room. They were inside. Ethan's thoughts spiraled. How could they find him? How did they know so much? Every noise felt amplified, the creak of the floorboards, the faint buzz of his phone, the sharp inhale of his own breath. He backed into the corner of the bedroom, knife raised, ready to fight for his life. Footsteps approached, deliberate and unhurried. A shadow stretched across the floor, growing larger as the figure came closer. Ethan's phone buzzed one last time. Trembling, he glanced at the screen. It was another message, "Turn around." Before he could process the words, the bedroom window shattered. Shards of glass rained down as a second figure climbed in. Ethan swung the knife wildly, his screams filling the small space. The last thing he saw was the glowing screen of the intruder's laptop, displaying one final message. Curiosity killed the cat. And then, the room went black. Ethan awoke to the sound of distant sirens and the sensation of cold, hard concrete beneath him. His head throbbed, and his vision blurred as he struggled to make sense of his surroundings. He wasn't in his apartment anymore. The faint hum of fluorescent lights buzzed above, casting a sterile, pale glow over what appeared to be an empty, windowless room. He tried to move but found his wrists bound to the arms of a metal chair. Panic surged through him as he tugged at the restraints, but they wouldn't budge. The air was heavy, and the faint smell of something metallic lingered, making his stomach churn. In front of him, a laptop sat on a small table. The screen was dark, but the faint sound of typing echoed in the room. Ethan's eyes darted around, searching for the source, but he saw no one. Just as he opened his mouth to call out, the screen of the laptop flickered to life. The live feed of his own face appeared on the screen. He stared, wide-eyed, at his reflection, the terror etched into his features undeniable. Beneath the video feed, a chat window opened. Watcher 42, you wanted to see the dark web, Ethan. Now you're part of it. Ethan's breath hitched. His mind raced for an escape, for some way to reason with whoever was doing this. Please, he croaked, his voice hoarse. I don't know what you want. Just let me go. The screen flashed again, and a series of images appeared, photos of Ethan's family, his friends, even his co-workers. Beneath each photo was a single word, target. No. Ethan screamed, his voice breaking. Leave them out of this. They have nothing to do with me. The laptop's camera light blinked, and the distorted voice he had heard before filled the room, no longer coming from his phone but through hidden speakers. You were warned, Ethan. You didn't listen. Tears streamed down his face as he begged. I'll do anything. Just stop this. The voice chuckled, a low, mechanical sound that made Ethan's skin crawl. You already have. The room went dark again, leaving Ethan alone with the sound of his own ragged breathing. Suddenly, the restraints on his wrists released, and the door behind him creaked open. For a moment, he sat frozen, unsure if this was another part of their twisted game. But the instinct to survive overpowered his fear, and he bolted from the chair, rushing toward the door. The hallway beyond was long and featureless, lit by flickering lights. His bare feet slapped against the cold floor as he ran, not knowing where he was going but desperate to escape. Behind him, he could hear faint laughter echoing, growing louder with each step he took. Finally, he reached another door at the end of the hallway. He threw it open, expecting freedom. Instead, he found himself back in his apartment. Everything was exactly as he had left it: the broken window, the splintered door, the knife on the floor. His phone buzzed on the counter. Slowly, cautiously, he picked it up. A new text message from an unknown number read, "Welcome back." Ethan collapsed onto the couch, his body trembling. He thought about calling the police, but what could he tell them? That he'd been kidnapped and returned in the span of a single night? That he'd been terrorized by faceless strangers who seemed to know everything about him? As he sat there, the laptop on his desk powered on by itself. The screen displayed a single line of text: "This is only the beginning." Ethan realized he was no longer just a viewer of the dark web. He was part of it now, forever tangled in its shadows. And no matter how far he ran or how much he tried to forget, they would always be watching. It started with a dare. Megan and her friends, huddled in the dimly lit corner of her basement, had been swapping urban legends about the internet's most forbidden corners. The dark web, a place where the unimaginable lurked, hidden from the surface world. After a few drinks and too much bravado, someone suggested they try to access it. Megan, tech-savvy and always game for a challenge, agreed. "Just for fun," she said, grinning as she booted up her old laptop. "We'll look around and then shut it down. Nothing serious." Her friends Lila, Jake, and Ryan leaned in closer as she downloaded the necessary software. The basement's only light came from the flickering glow of the laptop screen, casting their faces in pale hues. Megan felt a slight thrill as she navigated through encrypted layers and landed on the dark web's front page. It was both underwhelming and unnerving. Basic text-based menus offered access to anonymous forums, illegal marketplaces, and mysterious services. The group clicked through categories, giggling nervously at listings for counterfeit money and absurd conspiracy theories. It was strange, but nothing felt real. Until they found the link. It was labeled, "Do not click." "That's gotta be a joke," Jake said, laughing nervously. "Like reverse psychology." "Or it's a trap," Ryan added. Megan hovered the cursor over the link. "It's probably nothing," she said, half to herself. Lila grabbed her arm. "Megan, seriously. Let's not." But curiosity won. Megan clicked. The screen went black. For a moment, they thought the laptop had crashed. Then, a single line of text appeared. "Welcome, visitor. Prove yourself worthy." A timer began counting down from 10 minutes. Beneath it, a prompt appeared. "Enter your name." Megan's fingers hesitated over the keyboard. "What does it mean, prove yourself?" "Don't type anything," Lila urged. "This feels wrong." "We've already come this far," Jake argued. "Just put in a fake name." Megan typed some. The screen flickered, and a new prompt appeared. "Are you ready to play? /N." Her heart pounded. "This is just some creepy game," she said, trying to sound casual. She pressed Y. The timer reset to 5 minutes. A new message appeared. "Retrieve the package from your doorstep." Everyone froze. Megan's stomach turned. "That can't be real," she whispered. Jake laughed nervously. It's just a coincidence. Ryan wasn't so sure. Let's not open the door. Megan stood, her legs shaky. I'll check. It's probably nothing. She climbed the stairs, her friends following close behind. The front door creaked as she opened it. A small, unmarked box sat on the welcome mat. Megan stared at it, her breath catching in her throat. "No way," Jake muttered. "Don't touch it," Lila warned. Ignoring her, Megan picked up the box and carried it inside. The group sat in tense silence as she opened it. Inside was a small USB drive and a slip of paper that read, "Insert to continue." "Nope," Ryan said, standing. "I'm out. This is too much." "Wait," Megan said, her voice trembling but resolute. "We've come this far." She plugged the USB into the laptop. The screen filled with static before displaying another message. "Task 1 complete. Task 2 begins. Check the basement." The friends exchanged uneasy glances. "This is some elaborate prank," Jake said, though he didn't sound convinced. "How would anyone know about our basement?" Megan asked. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Reluctantly, they descended the stairs. The basement was just as they'd left it, except for one detail. A new item lay on the floor, a manila envelope with Megan's name scrawled on it in red ink. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside were printed photographs of her walking to work, sitting in her apartment, even taken just hours earlier in the basement with her friends. Lila gasped, backing away. "This isn't a game. This is someone watching us." Before anyone could respond, the laptop upstairs began emitting a loud, distorted noise. They rushed back to find the screen flashing erratically. A video feed appeared, a live stream of their basement. In the corner of the frame stood a figure in a black mask, staring directly at the camera. The screen displayed one final message. "You've proven yourselves. Welcome to the game." And then the power went out. Megan's breath caught as the basement plunged into darkness. Her friends huddled close, the faint glow of their phone screens the only source of light. A cold draft swept through the room, though the windows and doors were shut. Lila's trembling voice broke the silence. "Megan, what did you do?" Before she could respond, a sharp scraping sound echoed from the far corner of the basement. Ryan aimed his phone flashlight toward the noise, but the beam illuminated nothing but dusty storage boxes. Then they heard it again, closer this time, the unmistakable sound of heavy breathing. Megan's pulse raced as she clutched the nearest object, a rusty wrench from her dad's old tool bench. Jake whispered, "We need to get out of here. Now." As they crept toward the stairs, the breathing grew louder. Just as Megan's foot hit the first step, the laptop in the corner roared back to life, flooding the basement with a blinding white light. On the screen was a live feed of their terrified faces. A distorted voice crackled through the laptop speakers, "Leaving so soon?" The basement door slammed shut above them. Panic erupted. Lila screamed, Ryan banged on the door, and Jake grabbed a chair, trying to wedge it under the handle to pry it open. But Megan's eyes remained fixed on the screen, where the masked figure loomed larger than before. The voice returned, eerily calm. The game has only just begun. The lights flickered back on, and the door unlocked with a soft click. Ryan didn't hesitate, yanking it open and sprinting up the stairs. The others followed, their breaths ragged as they bolted outside into the cool night air. But as they looked back at the house, the glow of the laptop was visible through the basement window. The screen displayed a single line of text. Round 2 begins at midnight. At the stroke of midnight, Megan's phone buzzed with a new notification. Trembling, she unlocked it to find an app she didn't recognize, a black icon with a single white circle in the middle. Against her better judgment, she tapped it. The app opened to reveal a live feed of her street. The camera panned slowly, stopping in front of her house. A single message appeared on the screen. Congratulations, Megan. You've been chosen as tonight's host. Suddenly, the power in her neighborhood flickered and went out entirely, leaving her and her friends bathed in moonlight. The sound of footsteps echoed down the street. Megan peered out the window, her heart pounding as she saw dozens of figures in black masks approaching, each holding a glowing device. Megan's voice broke the silence. We need to run. Now. But it was too late. The figures surrounded the house, their devices lighting up in unison. The last thing Megan saw before the screen went black was her own terrified face reflected in the glass. By morning, the house was empty. No signs of Megan or her friends remained, except for the laptop, which sat closed on the basement floor. The screen displayed one final message. Game over.